Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had a great weekend. Yeah, I figured this video would be a great time because we're at that point with the build where I figured we'd start going over what this cost. And because we're really at the point where I think this car is close to being done for what I want. And of course, we're gonna tinker, we're gonna play, we're gonna add a couple things here and there. But I wanted to go over what this car cost me with parts, with the car, everything, and then kind of explain to you what you don't need to do and what you could do to get yourself a track car for even cheaper than what I've spent. Sounds like a pretty good deal, doesn't it? Before we get into the pricing, I'm kind of excited because I got to finish up a couple things and this car is like right there on being ready to go to the track and just have fun. And it really was kind of already ready, but I decided to change things. Already ready? I don't know. Anyway, so I did some stuff over the weekend. Let's take a look at what I did. Yeah, I know the B-roll's cheesy, but I had to do it. I think the whole car looks so good now. So for those of you who are just stopping by, we did a 98-01 front bumper. This car is a 96, so it had the older front bumper on it. It was unpainted. Here's a picture of it real quick, just as a reminder so you guys can see the front end of what the car used to look like. And I think it looks so much better. So I picked up these silver fenders, which are no longer silver, as you can notice. They are now black. I did have those painted Nighthawk black, which is a blue tinted black, which you can actually see the blue really pops. It does not match the car. It does not match the front bumper. The front bumper I'm probably gonna have repainted with the Type R lip that I purchased. I got an OEM replica Type R USDM lip. And that's gonna be it for the cosmetics. I do think I'm gonna throw some side skirts on it, some PCI track skirts, and then I do have a big wing, PCI wing for the back of the car, and then we'll be done with this car really on the cosmetic side. Maybe we fix some of these dents in the back of the car with paintless dent removal, but other than that, we're kind of leaving the car the way that it is. The other thing that I did this weekend was I was able to strip out some of the interior. I got rid of the front seats already. I was able to give them to somebody who needed front seats for his build. Tan interior is not exactly the most desirable, so I just kind of put them up for free, and he ended up picking them up this morning, which I'm really happy about. But they at least went to a good home, and they got reused instead of going to the junkyard. I'm not going to open it up, but you can see inside I got the Sprint seat in there, and we got the rear seat stripped out because I do have to put in a harness bar. Tomorrow it's going to Tri-State Motorsports to have the hood pins put in. So I'm pretty stoked on the way that this car came out. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. All the suspension parts and everything. That's why we're going to get into what that price was, what it cost me to get to the car to this point, and then what you guys can do to save yourself a little bit of money and not get this crazy. Let's get started. Let's start off by saying, just because I spent this on the car doesn't mean that you even need to, and we can kind of just talk about what would be necessary to get this thing out on the track, in my opinion, safely, okay? Because some of this stuff was unnecessary. I did go a little bit over the top considering this is a budget, quote unquote, build. You don't need to do half the stuff that I did. So we're gonna start off just by saying that, because as said previously, there's a good chance that if you find a better deal on a car cosmetically, it might need a little bit of work here and there. But mine was a little rough cosmetically, and that's why I got it relatively cheap. But that's also because I'm in New Jersey, where people ask the world for their car. Now again, this is something that you don't have to do, but I would highly recommend doing it because most of these cars don't come with anything that's really that good. Most people lower their car for the street and they think that's just good enough, right? Well, no, that's not really good enough. So you're gonna wanna put yourself on a set of decent coilovers. Do some research, take a look. There's so many different brands, so many different companies, price points all over the place. I ended up going with a K-Tune Circuit set of coilovers with different springs ratings for the front and the back. Now, you don't have to get that crazy. It's excessive. I built the coilovers for the silver car thinking I wasn't going to get as crazy with the silver car. This car inherited them. I ended up spending, I want to say, somewhere around $1,500 with the upgraded springs. Now, keep in mind, I also had some sponsorship help with that. You're probably looking at somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 for whatever setup you end up going with. Do your research again, talk to your local shop, talk to somebody who has some experience with coilovers. You don't want to just go with like a street style coilover. You can get away with it and you'd probably be fine, but you want to try to lean towards a track style coilover if that's what you're going for. Next is Willwood brakes. So we went with a 6-piston Willwood brake. This is not their track style brake set. This is a regular street style brake set. This is going to run you anywhere between $850 and $1,000. Next item, something that you don't need to do. I put drop forks on this car. You can just use the stock forks on the coilovers. They're more than perfect for what they had. I just so happen to have them, so I threw them on the car. That was another $279 that you could save, but I put on this car. Now, in my opinion, aside from coilovers and brakes, which, again, if you don't want to put Willwoods on your car, that's $1,000 savings. If your calipers are in decent shape, you could even pick up brand new OEM ones. They might not be OEM ones, but they're OEM replacements, let's put it that way, for relatively cheap. I think they're probably going to cost you like $50 a piece. So $100, you got brand new calipers on the front. Rear calipers, I would probably recommend doing. We have not done them on this car yet. I do plan on doing that at some point. But the ones on the car are functioning. So other than those things, brakes and coilovers are probably the most important things that you want to replace right out of the gate. But in my opinion, even above and beyond that, it's a 30-year-old car and you want to replace all the bushings. So what I did was, I'm just going to tell you all the things that I think are the most important, but also kind of crucial if you want to get some adjustment out of your suspension to get it dialed in for the track. And also, again, these are relatively cheap parts. You can go much more expensive. These are going to be your budget-friendly parts. So I went with a Skunk 2 Pro upper control arm, a Buddy Club set, a set of Buddy Club ball joints. Those are extended ball joints. They're really meant for having a lowered car. We have white line rear sway bar, a set of True Heart rear camber kit, True Heart rear toe kit, True Heart rear trailing arm bushing. So these are all things that are super important, and also True Heart compliance arm bushings as well. So all that being said, you're looking at about $1,000, probably about $1,000 to $1,200 depending on the parts that you actually go with, because the upper control arms aren't necessary as long as the bushings are okay, and those could be replaced. But you want to replace all these things because you're going to be pushing the car beyond the point of a normal car on a track. Even though you think you might drive your car hard on the street, you're not. So quickly on the inside of the car, I put a Sparco seat in this car. I got the Sprint seat, which is probably one of the cheaper ones. You could probably go even cheaper, but that is a good quality bucket seat that I trust the brand on. Sparco Sprint seat is going to cost you about $425. Brackets are going to cost you about $255. So all said and done, you're probably looking about $800 for the seat and the brackets just for your seat in general. That's not including your harnesses, which I did not include yet because you can get away with using just your sock seats and your seat belts as well. But I wanted to let you know what I spent. That's what I spent. Well, as I said, these things are really unnecessary. Going ahead and putting a carbon fiber hood on. Now, I found one used, and you can see that it's used. It is not a new hood. There are some little bit of faded spots. He had a sticker on it, which kind of faded around the sticker, and then hood pins, which we are actually going to get some arrow catches installed on it, just because, in my opinion, I wouldn't put a carbon fiber hood on where you're actually pushing the car pretty hard without having hood pins on. So something that I just think you should do. That's my opinion, but I did that. So I did $600 for a used carbon fiber hood, $300 for a used front bumper, $300 for used 98 headlights, and the fenders I said $250 because it's kind of hard to determine what I actually paid for them, because I did buy an additional silver front bumper, and if I end up selling that thing, the fenders will be close to free. I only showed what it cost me to paint these because hopefully the car you get comes with good fenders, so you wouldn't even have to worry about that. I also put a Moroso oil pan on, which is $377 with the OEM gasket, which was $60. And what else did we do here? A vibrant street power muffler, which you're probably gonna wanna put some sort of exhaust in the car. Let's be realistic, if it doesn't come with one already. And that is 200 and, what was that? $148 for just the muffler. All right, so $9,000 is what I have into this car, and that is including the price of the car. Now, I have things like the wheels and tire setup. These are Volks, these are no cheap wheel. These wheels probably cost almost as much as the car, if not exactly as much as the car. I paid $3,000 for the car. But you can get wheels and tires that aren't. You know, Koenig makes some really good wheels that are relatively cheap. You can get the RPF ones. I know everybody says RPF ones. They're great wheels. They're lightweight. They look good on everything. Who cares what anybody thinks? And at the end of the day, you end up with a really nice example of an Integra. And I wouldn't say really nice, but a good example of an Integra. Everything is there. It doesn't look hideous. And this was 1 month. And again, there's a lot of stuff on this car that is excessive. I already had them for the silver car, so I was able to use on this car, which took it to the next level. But you don't need it. You don't need the big brakes. You don't need the carbon fiber hood. You don't need even the Sparco seat, the Sparco steering wheel, any of those things. All you need to do is replace all the suspension. So realistically, guys, you're looking at whatever the cost of the car is. Try to find yourself a $2,000 to $3,000 car. Get yourself all those suspension pieces. You want the bushings. You want all that stuff. Don't skimp on just skipping out on something like that. It's for your safety at the end of the day. If you blow up the motor or something like that, obviously that's going to be a huge expense. But the biggest things that you need are just good suspension, good brake pads and rotors, and make sure your calipers obviously are functioning properly. Make sure that you replace all the fluids in your car. If your car is older and it hasn't had certain services done, replace the hoses, replace the radiator. And then what I would probably recommend, if you can afford it and you could keep it in your budget, is some sort of baffled oil pan. Hondas and Integras and stuff like that, they aren't notorious for having any sort of oil starvation, but when you start getting them out on the track and slinging them around a corner faster than you normally would on the street, you can run into those issues. And if you want to try to save the life of your motor, spending the $300-400 on an oil pan might be the best bet. So guys, aside from the silver car, this is really my first car where I'm doing the majority of the work on it. Certain things like putting the hood pins on and painting the fenders and that sort of stuff. It's been a long time since I did this. It's probably been about 10 to 12 years. I used to work on Hondas all the time, build my own cars, because I just didn't have it in my budget to pay somebody to do it. So I'm just excited that it's coming out so good, and that I'm able to do this and show you guys, and you guys come along with the process of building a car in a shorter period of time on a budget. Because let's be realistic, we don't all have Skyline R34 money or Turbo S Porsche money or any of these supercar monies. So if you want to go out and get yourself just a car that you could take to the track and rip around and have a great time with your friends, instead of doing street takeovers and stupid stuff, this is the way to do it. Cheap, fun, and you can find a good deal on these cars. Go out and look. Keep your eyes open on Facebook Marketplace, wherever you can find something, or even on the side of the road. You never know when you're just going to run across a car that's really kind of a nice car, just hanging out. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. As I said, this car has about $9,000 in it. You can do it for a lot cheaper. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you soon.